Glory to God. All right, hard road hour. I'm going to talk about today the thing that most people just tiptoe around like the floor is made of glass and the room is full of HR managers, okay? Sharia law. Not Muslims, okay? Not your coworker, not your neighbor's grandma, not the kid working the register down the street. No, a system. A legal political idea, a governing program, okay? Because men have to be able to separate people from ideologies, or we're just animals with opinions, okay? So here's the deal. Sharia, in plain language, right, is Islamic religious law, right? Understood by many Muslims as God's command for how life should be lived, not just private devotion, okay? In places where it becomes state law, it actually reaches into the courts, the family, crime, speech, money. Come on, it's the entire structure. Now, Britannica, when I read it, it says that the religious law of Islam and a system of duties seen as God's command, right? That was the baseline definition. That's not me spinning it. That's what it is. Go look it up right now, Britannica.com, okay? Now, you want the hard road truth, right? Because that's why we're here. The conflict isn't that religion exists. No. The conflict is when the state starts enforcing a religious code as public law, and then you get punished for conscience. That is the collision with Western liberty and the Christian-rooted idea of a free man who can worship by conviction instead of threat, instead of doing it by threat. Because if you can be killed for leaving a belief system, that isn't faith, okay? That's a cage. And if you've never lived under a cage, okay, you don't really appreciate what your ancestors built for you. So I'm going to stop being vague, okay? I want to point directly at the mechanics of oppression. There are, right, Muslim-led countries where apostasy and blasphemy, they're treated as capital crimes in both law and practice, and it's justified religiously. So the USCIRF, right, they know that in Saudi Arabia, apostasy and blasphemy, they're capital crimes, okay? They also know that there's the similarly religiously grounded capital categories and repression that we find in Iran's system too. You guys, that's not a rumor, okay? I'm not making that up. That is documentation, okay? Again, uscirf.gov. Go look it up. And I want you to actually picture what that means, okay? It means that a government can look at a human being and say, you said the wrong words. You believed the wrong thing. You stepped out of the approved lane, and now the state is going to erase you. That's the opposite of what we mean by liberty. And it is just completely incompatible with Western Christian ideals. Because Christianity spreads by proclamation, sacrifice, and persuasion, not by building a regime that kills dissenters just to keep their religious seats full. 2 Corinthians 3:17, right? Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. That's not poetic. That is a line in the sand, you guys. Liberty matters. Our conscience matters. Now, I'm going to walk right into the other grenade here because, men, we don't live by denial. Not real men. We're going to go into the hadith literature. I think that's how you say it, hadith literature. So in the Sahih al-Bukhari, it's 5134, it contains a narration that's attributed to this Aisha woman stating that Muhammad married her when she was 6, and then he consummated the marriage when she was 9. That is what the text says. That's not my opinion, you guys. You can look it up. Where is he? Sunnah.com, sunnah.com. Look it up. Okay, and I'm not doing the lazy thing here where I pretend that there aren't debates in the Muslim world about the history, context, and interpretation. Fine. People can argue. They can argue it. But here's why it matters in the real world, in the year that we're living in. Because texts like that, they've been used as cover. They've been used as justification and as a shield for practices that the modern West calls pedophilia and abuse. And if you're a father, you don't need a theology degree to understand the difference between a child and an adult. Childhood is not negotiable. Consent matters. Protection matters. So when you ask me why I'm calling Sharia law dangerous, it's because systems like this just don't want to exist privately, okay? In their strict political form, they want to govern, right? They want to set the rules. They want the state to enforce a moral code. And once you let a parallel law, right, grow inside of a free society, you don't have one nation anymore. No, you have fragments. You have enclaves, and you have separate rules, right? Separate loyalties, separate standards. And then the question comes, right? It always comes. Whose law runs the public square? Whose values are going to define the boundaries? Whose future gets written into the next generation? And if the host nation is too guilty to defend its own foundations, it doesn't stay the host for long. No, it just becomes a hotel. And then it becomes a battleground. Now, all right, let me keep this clean and Christian because I'm not giving you a hate sermon. I know I'm a little heated, okay? I'm just trying to give you clarity. I can love a Muslim as a human being made in the image of God and still reject Sharia as a governing system. Those two things, they can live in the same chest. That's not hate, you guys. That's called discernment. Look at 1 John 4:1, right? Test the spirits to see whether they are from God. Simple. That fits. Because not every spirit is good. Not every ideology is compatible with liberty. Not every system deserves a seat at the table of a free civilization. All right, here, maybe this will bring the whole room quiet here. Mass migration without assimilation is not diversity. It's a pressure system. If you bring in huge numbers faster than assimilation can happen, and you begin to allow parallel systems to form, you aren't getting unity. You're getting parallel societies. And you guys, parallel societies, they don't stay peaceful forever because sooner or later, the strong, they impose their rules on the weak. So when people say things like hostile takeover, right? What they're trying to describe is this: a civilization that refuses to defend its own standards, it just becomes easy to replace. And not because every immigrant is the enemy. That's stupid. No, it's because a leaderless, guilt-ridden nation, it invites stronger, more confident systems to fill that vacuum. And Sharia, right, in strict political form, okay, is a total system, okay? It doesn't want to be one option on a menu. It wants to be the menu. That's the danger. So what do? Well, we stop lying, okay? We protect liberty. We demand assimilation into constitutional order, and we insist on one law for everyone. We refuse this crazy parallel legal authority, right? We got to stay lawful, disciplined, and clear-eyed. And we do it without becoming cruel, because cruelty is how you actually become the thing that you claim to oppose, right? 2 Timothy 1:7, right? It says, For God has not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power and love and discipline. Power, so you don't surrender. Love, so that you don't become evil. And discipline, so that you don't become reckless. You guys, that is the formula. Glory to God. Walk the hard road. Stay solid. And remember, Muhammad was a pedophile.